Hello everybody and welcome to the Thursday edition of Video Clips. I'm going to talk about a situation that's been getting a lot of attention lately. Recently, the New York State Attorney General's office accused Walmart, Walgreens, Target, and GNC of marketing supplements that contain little to none of the listed ingredients and also included ingredients not listed on the labels, including fillers like rice, asparagus, and spruce. The findings were based on the results of a testing method called DNA barcoding. In response to the test results, the AG's office sent cease and desist orders to all 4 retailers. The New York Times broke the story on February 5th. I've been an outspoken critic of most dietary supplements for many years. The scientific evidence is quite clear that isolated nutrient supplements don't prevent, stop, or reverse disease, and that they can have harmful side effects. They can have medicinal properties, which means that responsible use under the direction of a knowledgeable practitioner and as an adjuvant to strategies like dietary change can contribute to better health. But most people who are purchasing supplements at retail establishments are not taking them as part of a treatment plan. Most people don't understand much about them, and they're essentially self-medicating with these products. Now, with all of that said, some of you might be surprised to hear that I have serious concerns about the findings of the New York AG's office, and I think that it's really quite possible that the office's actions were not warranted. So instead of taking the word of one New York Times reporter who appeared to just repeat the information provided by the AG's office, there was no counterpoint to any of it, I decided to do some investigating on my own. First, I looked at several published articles on DNA barcoding. While this testing and identification method holds a lot of promise, several fairly recent articles reported that the technology is difficult to use with plants. I also found several articles quoting well-qualified individuals who were very concerned about this method of testing and the results that were reported through the AG's office. For example, Dr. Peter Cohen, assistant professor of medicine at Harvard Medical School, stated that the results of DNA barcoding in this case cannot be reliable. The reason is that DNA barcoding identifies a specific fragment of DNA that doesn't appear in plant extracts that are highly processed. This can give the appearance of mislabeling. The products can still contain biologically active compounds from the plant, but not intact DNA. Damon Little, associate curator at the New York Botanical Garden, agreed, stating that plant extracts contain very little intact DNA. He added that materials for herbal products are extracted using solvents including oil, and that the DNA does not likely survive that process. Little also said that the DNA of related species are so close that even well-trained researchers often cannot tell the difference, which may result in the identification of fillers in this case. According to the American Botanical Council, the AG's office hired a researcher with a background in evolutionary biology and reptilian zoology. He had no expertise in botany, pharmacology, or natural products. The Botanical Council's chief science officer, Stephen Gaffner, I think is his name, sent a statement to the author of the Times article, stating that he was concerned about the technology, the fact that only one lab and testing method was used. However, none of that material showed up in the Times article. As I mentioned earlier, the reporter just seemed to repeat what the AG's office provided. Gaffner also said the AG's test results, and this is a quote, do not comport with other recently published research on herbal dietary supplements. 2 recent tests from reputable laboratories on commercial ginkgo extracts and ginkgo products were some of the ones that were tested as part of this whole thing, have found ginkgo in all or almost all of the samples tested. His statement was based on published tests of commercial ginkgo extracts conducted at the New York Botanical Garden and the University of Mississippi National Center for Natural Product Research. Now, to me, Gaffner does not seem unreasonable in stating that issuing a cease and desist order before providing test results to the manufacturers and retailers involved and allowing them to respond, before validating the test results using other more proven technology, and before consulting with individuals who are experts in botanicals seems a little aggressive. Again, I have to agree here. I don't think that this guy's being unreasonable. Attorney General Eric Schneiderman Did a little checking on him. He's no fan of supplement companies. In fact, last year he opened an investigation of Herbalife's sales practices. There's a whole lot going on with this, and that's another story for another day, but there are some wealthy investors in New York shorting Herbalife stock, and it's not really clear what the motivation for the investigation is. Well, I'm no fan of Herbalife either, but I'm also opposed to government overreach. So I can't know for sure, but it is not unreasonable to think that perhaps Schneiderman's dislike for supplement companies or their makers or retailers may have something to do with this. I'm also skeptical about this situation because law enforcement at the local, state, and federal level has just run amok. I've read numerous books on the topic, and if you're looking for a recommendation, One Nation Under Arrest, How Crazy Laws, Rogue Prosecutors, and Activist Judges Threaten Your Liberty is a great one to read. The content of this book should scare all of us because basically the government can initiate an action against almost any American individual or company it chooses to without much, if any, evidence of wrongdoing. I've experienced this personally, and I know other individuals who've been pursued by state or federal agencies without cause. Attorneys general and attorneys for the Justice Department have the upper hand. They can generate an enormous amount of negative publicity for companies and people. They have unlimited funds. They need little evidence in order to take action. And I've had personal experience with this. No matter how wrong they are, no matter how much damage they cause, they are never personally liable for their actions like you and I are if we do bad things to other people. I've seen enough misbehavior that I tend to side with the targeted rather than the targeters. All right, New York legislators are already calling for more regulation of the supplement industry in response to this. It's just taking on a life of its own. And you might think that I'd be real supportive of more regulation for supplements, and I'm really not. The FDA, first of all, would be the supervising agency. It's also already proven its ethical lack of unsuitability for regulating anything, which is evidenced by how the agency continues to partner with drug companies against the interest of public health. Another thing is many people are not aware that one of the reasons the laws were changed in favor of less regulation of dietary supplements over 20 years ago was in response to regulatory misbehavior by the FDA. I could give you lots of examples, but I think the best one is at one point in time the FDA was so out of control that it organized an armed raid of Dr. Jonathan Wright's office in Washington State because he was selling dietary supplements to patients. Employees were threatened at gunpoint, and patient records and dietary supplements were seized. I personally do not want to give the feds any opportunity or power to do anything like that again. Now, I also need to make a comment about some very disturbing articles and postings about the New York dietary supplements issue made by some well-respected people in the plant-based movement. They've been quick to parrot information from the New York Times article, apparently without questioning any of it. I'm shocked and frankly a little concerned about how many other times statements may have been issued without investigating the facts more carefully. It seems that the eagerness to repeat information in this Times article is based on the fact that it reinforces their anti-supplement stance for some of these individuals, not because the facts are correct. Now I'm going to reiterate here, this is not about me being a fan of supplements, but we all should be a fan of fair law enforcement and in seeking and reporting the truth about any issue. I'm covering this issue not just to stir up controversy, although invariably when I cover anything it does, but rather because I've received so many questions about it, because there appear to be a lot of conflicting opinions, in fact from some reputable people who are having difficulty being heard, and because I think it's important to provide truthful information, which seems to be sorely lacking in this case. And I think one of the reasons is I figured out how much time it took me to look at the resources that are here in this article, which will be posted in the Health Grace Online Library, and track all this stuff down. It took me 3.5 hours to write these 4 pages of material that I can then report to you. And I think that we just have to get everybody on the page of, if you can't take the time to look at the issue and report the facts, maybe you just should not say anything at all. Just some food for thought. All right, that's all for today. It's all for the week. As usual, pass this on to anybody who you think would enjoy watching it, and I'll be back to you next week with more news.